Happy Devils Wednesday. This is the State of the Fan Address, episode 237. Coming to you live from the Primetime Radio Studios inside the bunker in North and South Jersey. Streaming live on Facebook Live, YouTube Live, Twitter Live, and Twitch on the Let's Go Devils Network. I'm your host, Sam Wu, here with PucksandPitchforks.com editor-in-chief Nick Villano. We got a great podcast for you because we want to know, should Devils fans be worried? We got James Nichols of New Jersey Hockey Now coming on in a little bit. Good friend of the podcast. Nick, you seem depressed today.
How would you like me to respond to that? What do you expect me to be after seeing that pretty pathetic performance yesterday?
I don't know, Nick. I'm just making small talk right now.
You look depressed. It's not small talk. That's like I need to call a therapist. Like, what the heck?
Well, I mean, you've had Comcast issues all day, right? You've had
That's true.
a bad day. Things are just, people are screaming at you, all that kind of stuff. But here we are, Devils hockey. Should we be worried?
I'm going to answer it real quick because James Nichols is going to be on, in a few minutes. First, this is how I feel. That's how I feel about it. Okay, I'm gonna take a nice swig.
I gotta get you one of these. They're sitting in my garage.
Listen.
I gotta make it down there, South Jersey.
You've been talking about it. You've been talking about it a lot, Sam.
I've been busy. I've been very busy, just so you're aware. I've been working 24/7.
I see a lot of Woo reports. I see a lot of them. Here's the thing. So I went through every emotion through Twitter last night on the Pucks and Pitchforks account. Everything from team's bad, which I still believe. The team that I saw last night, the team I saw in Colorado, the team, that played most recently, the team that's only won the Chicago Blackhawks game in their past 5, it's bad. It was a bad team. If this was the team you went to the season with, it's a bad team. I know you still got Timo Meier. I know you still got Jesper Bratt. I know you still got, there's players. Dawson Mercer's been playing better. But, Dougie Hamilton's still good. But it's a bad team. It's not a good team. And it's because a number of factors. They're not finishing. They're getting a ton of chances, but they're not going in the net. The defense is a problem. Now, I'll get to that in a sec. And the goalies are an issue. I don't want to call it a problem. They're problematic. I don't think this is what Vitek, Vanacek, and Akira Schmidt are, right? I think that there's something's not correlating. Right, you can't tell me that the Vitek Vanacek from last year is the same one from this year. Did he like lose his smile like Shawn Michaels? Like, did he forget how to play hockey because he had a bad playoff? Like, get over it. Like, it's happened. Now go play well in the regular season. And the thing about the Devils goalies is they make these stupendous saves. Right, you got the diving save from Vitek. You've had a couple really good kick saves from Schmid. Like, Vitek's had some superstar saves, some of the best saves of the year, but as a whole, it's been bad, right? They have an under 900 save percentage. Their goals saved above average is 2 of the worst in the league. Both near like the 60s, I think. I'd have to double check after last night's game, but I think they're like somewhere in the 60s as far as ranking, not as far as number. Like I think they rank somewhere in like the 60-ish range in the league, right? So they're basically both bad backups. That is something I think they address, just to be honest. Like, I think they're going to trade for a goalie. I think they're going to do it sooner rather than later. It just seems like, we saw, I think Tom Fitzgerald talked to Ryan Novozinski, or Ryan Novozinski got a comment about how they were looking to add to get, Schmid moved down something to that ilk. So I think that move is happening. I do. I don't think it's going to be big. I think you're looking at like a Dan Vladar from Calgary, or like, somebody smaller, right? Because when you look at like the other goalies that would be available, John Gibson's on Anaheim, and Anaheim's a bullet. Karen Veshmelka is on Arizona, and Arizona's been competitive, and they want to be competitive. Hellebuck just signed that huge deal. Your only really option is Saros, and Saros has been bad. And there's like factors. And then I think he would come here and play better, but there's that. Now let's go back to the defense for a sec. I think it's going to be fine. It's bad right now. Don't get me wrong. And they're having trouble finding the chemistry. They're having trouble finding the right pairings. Obviously, Brendan Smith is like the big problem, and I do want him out of the lineup. I don't think he's going to be there long term. I think they'll figure something out. We all kind of expect Simon Nemeth to kind of be in the lineup come January, February-ish, like somewhere in that range, and to play full time. I think you're going to see Colin Miller in tomorrow against Pittsburgh. I think you got to give this Luke and Dougie thing was never going to work on game one, right? They were always going to be very volatile, and volatility is usually worse before it's better. So I don't love the pairing. Like, truthfully, I don't love them together. But if you're going to put them together, like, you got to give them more than one game. And then, the John Marino situation, I truthfully think it is better than it looks. Like, I don't think the him and Siegenthaler pairing last night was that bad. I'd have to look back at the numbers, but I think that they were fine overall. But you need better than fine right now is the problem. When you have a Dougie and a Luke who's pure chaos, you need lockdown. You can't just be fine. So, but again, I think the defense is going to figure itself out. Like, more exposure and experience for Kevin Ball, more exposure and experience for Luke Hughes, eventually getting Simon Nemeth in there and, easing him into that lineup. Brendan Smith is Brendan Smith. This is exactly who he is and who he's always been. He's a seventh defenseman. He's who you put in when somebody gets hurt, and guess what? Somebody got hurt. Colin Miller got hurt, wasn't ready until now. I think he'll be in the lineup tomorrow. As far as the finishing, Jack Hughes is coming back. Like, so it doesn't even, it's just a moot point. It stinks that it happened. It stinks that he was out for a couple weeks. What if he comes tomorrow, what did he end up missing? 6 games? 5 games or 6 games?
Half a dozen.
So you can survive even if you lost all 6. You ended up getting 2 wins out of that. Note, he missed 5 games. Yeah, he missed 5 games, and then a majority of that St. Louis game. So, whatever. Call it 5, call it 6, whatever. But even if he comes back during the Rangers game and they lose tomorrow at Pittsburgh, you got to get back to winning ways next week, right? Even if you lose the Pittsburgh game and the New York game, that'll stink. You'll be in bad shape. But it's not in a place where you can't make up for it. It's November. People forget how bad December was last year. The Devils went 4-7-2 in December last year. Like, just devastating. And they broke franchise records for points and wins. It's okay to have a bad month, but you're in weird spot now. What's going in their favor is the standings are kind of weird. Outside of the Rangers, who have been very good, got to give the Devil its due. Carolina's been kind of bad, and they're losing 3-0 to Philly right now. Washington. Like, Spencer Carberry has them in a nice place, but they're one injury away from just falling apart. Like, they are doing it with smoke and mirrors right now. They have a -2 goal differential, and they're 8-4-2. That's not a sustainable model. Pittsburgh, they seem to have righted the ship. They've put things in the right place. They won 5 in a row, and now they're going against the Devils tomorrow on a 5-game win streak. Devils on a 3-game losing streak, and then if the Flyers win tonight, they're going to be ahead of the Devils. The Devils are going to be in 6th place tonight, probably, but realistically, they're still better than going to be better. I think they're going to be better than Philly. I can't do the math in my head, but I think they're going to be better than Philly in points percentage. Carolina is going to be close to them in points percentage, even though they have 3 more points. The Islanders have been really bad. Like they're chanting to fire their coach, which I think is a moniker to the Devils, like trying to turn things around. I think you're going to see a lot of teams do that just because it got so famous that the Devils did it. I don't think it's actually serious. I think Columbus is bad. I think Columbus is just bad, and they're just going to be another bad team. Vis-a-vis to say, I'm not worried. Worried in the general sense that like this isn't a playoff team. I am worried in the general sense that there's a lot going on that doesn't have answers, that the team needs to get better, right? Like the defense needs to get better, the goaltending needs to get better. You assume it will be, but you know what they say when you assume? What they say when you assume is you introduce James Nichols from New Jersey Hockey Now to the Let's Go Devils podcast. That's a saying, right?
I guess that was very good. That's our
people have been saying that since 1932, so it must be true.
Yeah, well, good friend of the podcast, James Nichols of New Jersey Hockey Now, is in the Andy Green room. James, you're on with Sam and Nick. How are you tonight?
I'm doing well, fellas. How are you guys doing?
You must be doing better than what you saw last night, right? Did you feel a little sick from seeing what you saw on the ice?
Yeah, that was one of those games where I was sitting there watching it, and I was kind of bored at first because I was just like, there's not much going on here. Things kind of picked up a little bit, but it was interesting. It was one of those games where it didn't feel like it was as bad as the score indicated. I know that they were down, for a little more than half of that game, but it did feel like, at least at even strength play, that they were playing somewhat well. But for some reason they just lacked finish. So and they obviously can't keep the puck out of their own net. So it was definitely one of those head scratchers for me, where I was just saying to myself, what's missing here in terms of finding the back of the net.
So I'm just gonna come out like the name of our podcast tonight. The title is "Should Devils fans be worried?" Are you worried? Are you worried about this team? Is in like the general sense?
No, not necessarily. I think that obviously there's a couple key injuries here, and then the fact of the matter is that one of those key injuries could be returning as soon as this weekend. We'll see on that, but their underlying statistics, at least at 5-on-5, look really good. They're controlling, the chance differential, the chance share, at even strength, which is a good indication that they're at least playing well with the puck. They just need to find ways to score. Yes, there are blue line issues. Yes, there are goaltending issues. However, if and when Jack comes back sooner rather than later, he kind of helps mask those things a little bit. But I don't think that the management will let those things go unresolved, whether that is to maybe call up a Simone Nemec if that's necessary. We haven't even seen Colin Miller yet. Let's see how he pairs with a guy like Luke Hughes and gives a Brendan Smith night off, or many if necessary. And then if Fitzgerald does decide to maybe go outside the organization for some help, I don't necessarily think he'd be afraid to do so if this team really finds themselves in need of it. But, again, they're, sputtering right now. Every team goes through their, growing pains, their hiccups. I think obviously this is one of those moments. But they have, again, the underlying numbers to suggest that they can turn this around.
Yeah. I think some of the underlying numbers are encouraging, like you said, and I think that there's hope there. There's some other numbers I don't love. Obviously, the goaltending numbers are pretty rough. So I'm going to skip ahead to that, and I kind of just want to jump into that and talk about the goalies because we just mentioned it. I can't think that Schmid and Vanacek just forgot how to play hockey. Like, as bad as Schmid was, or as bad as Vanacek was in the playoffs last year, he was so good in the regular season, and he would go through little spurts where he wasn't great, but I can't just believe that he's forgot how to be a professional goaltender. So what's your assessment? What's your assessment of the goalies from the beginning of the season until now? Is it as bad as the numbers say? And do you think the numbers are going to turn around?
Well, I think it has more to do with the team in front of them than it has to do with the goaltending themselves. I think the goaltending is what it is. What you're seeing from them is what they are. And last season, you just had a much better blue line playing in front of those goalies, making their jobs a little bit easier. So, whereas last year, let's say Vanacek made 33 saves. Those were low danger shots, majority of them. And he would come away with maybe making 2 or 3 high danger saves that, maybe should have gone in the back of the net. But he wasn't called upon in high danger situations too often. Whereas this year, they're just giving them up left and right. They're leaking everywhere. So it really has more to do with the defense in my mind than it does the goaltending, because I think, again, this is who they are. One of the things for me coming into this season was that I had a feeling the blue line was going to struggle, and that's because of 2 major key departures in Damon Severson and Ryan Graves. And I'm not sitting here saying that those guys were, the best defensemen in the league and are elite talents. They're very good players. And certainly, Fitzgerald and the organization felt that they were replaceable due to Luke Hughes' ceiling and the growth of Kevin Ball, which is certainly true. However, you have a 6th defenseman spot right now that is kind of leaky. And not to pin all the blame on Brendan Smith, I'm a Brendan Smith supporter. In fact, I love the guy. I think he's important to the team. But he has been making some egregious mistakes, and there are those chemistry imbalances right now where things aren't exactly clicking on the blue line. So when you have I think it was almost 950 games of NHL experience depart in the off season, you're bound to maybe take a step back there. And when you have mediocre goaltending that can't really mask that deficiency, this is the end result, I think. And the team as a whole isn't quite playing, how do I say, cohesively in front of the goaltending either. The team defense, including the forward group. So it is definitely a bit of a different look. Look, I mean, the fact of the matter is too, as much as they had success last year, they're 9 players different this year. That's a pretty big overturn after scoring 100 or collecting 112 points last year. So a lot of new faces, a lot of things to work out. Injuries, obviously, adversity to battle through. But the fact of the matter is that the goaltending needs to be better, and the best way to do that is by playing better defense in front of them.
So you mentioned the injury, and I just kind of want to do a shout out to your article today, which you were talking about Nico Hischier going on injured reserve, Colin Miller kind of jumping in. Is that it? Is that all that move is? Is just they needed a roster spot, and Nico Hischier was taking when he's not playing? Like, you don't think it's a sign of things got worse, or things are worse than they might have feared? Like, you don't think that's a sign of anything besides what it is on paper?
Yeah, no, I wouldn't take it for anything more than that. They wanted to make sure they could keep Max Woolman around. Colin Miller was getting healthy, so it was a bunch of paper transactions. A couple nights before that, you saw Max Woolman, be reassigned to the Utica Comets, but he didn't actually go anywhere. He stayed with the Devils, and they in order to be able to keep Woolman on the roster because they felt they were going to continue to need a forward. Miller goes on IR Miller comes off of IR, and Hischier goes to the IR retroactive to October 27th when he was injured. So this isn't a setback. He can still be activated as soon as he's ready. And when that is, we don't know. I'd be surprised if it's before Thanksgiving. Not too many games left to play before then. And only 6 remaining this month. So I tend to believe we're leaning toward a December return, if that soon for Nico.
Man, that hurts. Hey, I hate I thought he was going to return before Hughes. Jesus. Yeah,
it's definitely a questionable thing right now. Not too sure.
Sorry, I'm assuming you can hear me. I think my camera just went out, but
yeah.
Yeah, so sorry about this, but jump into your guy Ryan talked about what Fitzgerald was saying about the goalies and adding a goalie. Do you see something like that where the Devils might add add anything, a goaltending, a defenseman. Do you think they're going to add, whether through trade, whether through maybe Patrick Kane? I don't know. Do you think that they're going to look to add something?
I don't think Patrick Kane is in the cards. I mean, I'd be surprised. When this team is fully healthy, it's a pretty crowded top six. But I could definitely see a defenseman. I could definitely see a goaltender. How soon that happens really depends on the trajectory of the team. If they can get back on track, how soon are they going to need one? Is it an urgent matter, or are we heading toward the trade deadline? And just want to strengthen ourselves like everybody else is around us. Look, Nikita Zadorov requested that trade. We knew immediately there was interest from the Devils. We knew immediately there was interest from Zadorov to come to New Jersey. He would love to play for a contender regardless. And the fact of the matter is that Zadorov said that he would prefer that he had a resolution sooner than later. So New Jersey inquired if it happens sooner rather than later. For Zadorov, and New Jersey's in that mix, you could see that happen soon. As far as if they're going to get a goaltender, look, my belief is that goaltenders are not easy to come by in this league. Obviously, you see a couple of teams carrying 3 just because of the fact that they are scared to lose them on waivers, and maybe that opens the door for one of those teams to maybe sell one of those goaltenders to get something in return. But goaltending is really hard to come by, and especially I know a lot of people have been banging on the UC Saros drum. This is something I'm actually writing right now, but they're going to have to look somewhere else for goaltending if they're looking at Saros, because he's not going to be available. The Nashville Predators are working on signing him, long term. They think he's part of the retool fix there, and that doesn't look like it's going to happen. So where do you turn for goaltending? Hellebuck is signed long term in Winnipeg. Saros is looking toward inking an extension in Nashville, and the Ducks are playing pretty good with John Gibson and Dostal. So where do you look now? Maybe you can look at the Islanders and say Varlamov, but he just signed a 4-year extension. Do the Devils want to commit to that? I doubt it. Some people have asked about, do you maybe take Askarov, since Saros might not be available, but he's really not proven. I know he has a high profile, but he's not, someone that you can rely on in a playoff run. So it's going to be easier to go and acquire a defenseman and strengthen the blue line so you can get back to getting that goaltending you had last year and play better in front of them. If it's a guy like Zadorov, I think that helps. I think I'm more on the Chris Tanev train. I think that the Devils could really use a guy like him. Or you can look elsewhere for defense if you can. But I do think that they make a move. It's going to be someone on the blue line, potentially goaltending, but I think if nothing else, it'll be a defender.
Yeah. The only names that I can think of, I mean, the Flyers are playing like they're beating the Hurricanes 3-0 last time I checked, and they're going to jump the Devils in the standings. So that would be a weird one to go after Carter Hart. And, obviously the rivalry of that makes it a little weird. And Arizona is better than people thought they were going to be. So Vejmelka is not really going to be available, and
right.
You don't really want anybody in Chicago, So that's not really an upgrade there, and San Jose is doing it with Mackenzie Blackwood. So you literally
the
just
irony there.
Yeah. So it's the one that always kind of I always go back to is Jacob Markstrom, but he's just too old and has too many years in that contract. If he was on the last year of his deal and he was 33 years old, or maybe even 2 years, I think that maybe they go after him. But yeah, I just think that it's hard, right? They're in a weird position.
For sure.
And the league's in a weird position. So I want to talk about, you wrote this big expose on Alex Holtz after kind of, the last disappointment, and you really talked to him and kind of got the emotion. And he's a player that brings out a lot of emotion from the Devils, the fans. Every time he's not in the right place in practice, it's a meltdown on social media. Every time that he gets, sat down during a game, it's a meltdown. Every time Lindy Ruff says the wrong thing about him in the postgame press conference, it's a meltdown. So you really got the emotion of him and the emotion of the fan base, and you're writing about the right play at the right time. So where is your head at when it comes to Holtz? What are you seeing on the ice? And do you think that some of the emotion is warranted? Do you think that some of the criticism for Ruff is warranted? Like, after writing this, putting your thoughts together, what is your thoughts about Holtz as a whole?
Yeah, so obviously he came into this year in much better shape, and not that he was in bad shape last year, but he looked just that much better this year. In training camp and preseason, he looked like he was, really coming into himself as an NHLer. And he started the regular season, kind of getting demoted down to the bottom six and really not getting too many minutes. And again, the thing is, Lindy Ruff was brought to New Jersey to develop players, right? The fact is, when he signed on, guys like Hischier and Hughes were still developing, and New Jersey trusted Lindy Ruff to make these players who they are today, and they got there, right? So I think he's trying to do the same thing with Holtz in making sure that we know you can score goals. We know you're an offensive player, but can you win puck battles? Can you do the little things away from the puck defensively that ultimately lead to success, winning a game? And I think that he wants to see a little bit more of that from him. There have definitely been times, and I'm not advocating for him being in the bottom six, but I can say that there have definitely been times I've seen Holtz, on the wrong side of the puck. I've seen him, as a direct negative impact in a goal against from the opposition. So, I do see where the deficiencies lie in his game. However, I do also feel like you have to put him in a position to do better. And look, if you're going to put him on the fourth line with Nathan Bastian and Chris Tierney, well, that line is starting every shift either on the fly or in the defensive zone. He's not really the type to recover the puck, win a puck battle in his own zone and push it up the ice away from danger to create offense. He's the guy who's already in the offensive zone to score the goal. And I think that if you don't put him in that position to showcase his skill set, you're not really going to see it. And you could try and develop him into that kind of player if you would like to, but you're taking away from the value of his offense. And so I just think that, you got to put him where he was last night, in a position maybe in the top six where, look, if that line winds up ending up in the defensive zone, sure, he's got to win his puck battles. He's got to, be in the right position and play defensively. However, the team around him, guys like Timo Meyer or Jesper Bratt, whoever he's on a line with, because Lindy likes to shuffle it up a little bit, they're gonna help him, win those puck battles in the other end of the ice. They're gonna help him push the puck up to the offensive zone and start the cycle. And I think that Holtz played a really good game last night. I know he didn't find the score sheet, but he wasn't on the ice for too many egregious errors. I think he was on the ice for one goal against that he wasn't even really a direct result of. I think he was put in an opportunity to showcase that he has the ability to be a top six offensive player. Sure, he has to do all the other little things, but it's one of those things where he has to do better to get more minutes. But in order to do better, he needs to get more minutes. And I think that's what you saw last night. He got more minutes. He played in a different kind of role where he wasn't relied on so much defensively. And I think that that's what you need to do in order to develop him into the player that we think he can be. Because again, that shot that he has it's NHL caliber. It's ready. It's going to score goals. He just needs to be put in that position to do so.
Yeah, I can't disagree with that. A lot of the conversation I have with the people who are kind of against Holtz is that, you do have to just let him develop. You do just have to put him in that position and kind of give it 5, 6, 7 games. And if it leads directly to losses, then yeah, you can have that discussion. But we can't assume it's going to lead directly to losses before it happens, right? You got to just see what it's going to be and then, live with the results and then evaluate and move forward. So, but James Nichols killing the game at New Jersey Hockey Now. I know you're still doing some stuff for fourth period. I know you're doing a podcast. So why don't you take a second, promote everything you got going on. Let everybody know where they can find your work and everything you're going to be doing coming up.
Yeah, NewJerseyHockeyNow.com. That's where you can follow my daily coverage of the New Jersey Devils. Game previews, takeaways, and features, and all that good stuff. Anything and everything involving New Jersey. Fourth period, just doing some video content for them. They kind of set me on my career path, and I loved working for them. And when I got this new job, I was hesitant to leave, so I had said to them, I was like, I want to stick around any way I can. So doing some video content for them, and you can always hear me talk some hockey on Nassau Hockey Podcast. My podcast I've been doing since, man, it's been like 4 or 5 years now. Now that I mention it, so yeah, you can follow me on all those accounts.
And when's that? You mentioned the goalie piece. When can people expect that to be out?
Tomorrow.
Okay, perfect. So yeah, we'll share that on the socials, on the Let's Go Devils podcast social, on the Pucks and Pitchfork social. So and just follow James Nichols. We have the NJD Hockey Now, but James is his own Twitter account. I think it was James Nichols NHL.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, James Nichols NHL. So make sure you follow him there. Follow NJD Hockey Now. Make sure that you're clicking that follow button on the Twitters or the X or whatever the heck we are now. But James, I really appreciate you carving out some of your busy night for us, and we will definitely have you on again soon, friend.
Yeah, sounds good. Thanks, guys. Appreciate you having me.
Thanks, James. That is James Nichols of New Jersey Hockey Now. Good friend of the podcast. I got to get him an Crew brew after a game.
You better get me an Crew brew before you get him an Crew brew.
Well, Nick, you live far away. You can come
I know.
to me.
And
Actually,
I swung and missed twice on it, right? I almost went down to Departed Souls Brewery, but the timing didn't work out.
Truth be
and then
told,
I almost came to the party last week, but I'm sad I missed the party. I'm happy I missed the game. Can I say that? Is that allowed?
Yeah, no, that's allowed. That's allowed.
That game was dreadful.
Truth be told, we're pretty much sold out of these cans. We only have a handful.
I better get the in.
Yeah, no, it's sitting in my garage right now.
So, but you said people could get them at distributors, right?
Yep.
And people could ask for it?
You could just ask for it. They could look it up. It's officially registered. ShopRite Liquors in Morris County, there's a couple of them. Mm-hmm. They can't keep them on those shelves. So people are requesting cases, and it's going.
And listen, Sam, it sounds like this is going to stick around, right? Like, is this officially a limited release, or is this something that just exists now?
That just exists now. I mean,
I love that.
The demand is good. I actually just picked up the Amazon delivery. So we had 6 beer towers on the launch party. It now requires a dozen beer towers at American Whiskey.
Wow.
Yeah, because all 6 were being monopolized. People want them. Can't help it.
I mean, the look is so sleek in those beer towers with the red.
Yeah.
Like, it was such a smart idea to go with the red. And it's from what you tell me, it's an easy brew, right? Goes down pretty smooth.
Yeah.
Listen, I'm not putting an IPA in my beer tower. I'm not putting, some of my stouts in a beer tower, right? That would be foamy, putting a stout in a beer tower.
Yeah.
It's a smooth beer. It's a big. I mean, it looks like a giant goal light when it's in those beer towers.
Yeah, well, that's the whole goal, right? Red light lager, light the lamp, all that kind of stuff. But
y'all hit the nail on the head, and I'm excited. I'm excited to be a part of it. I'm excited. I tell people that I don't know if you heard this, but my podcast has a beer. They're like they don't even like. It's one of those things like. I don't like to brag on myself. I feel like I just end up doing a lot of things. So, you have to watch out because people think that you get braggy. But on this one, I was like, I don't know if you know this. Like, everybody says, I got a podcast. But, we get to say, and this is you. You and Beer Baron were spearheading. But I'm going to take some credit for the popularity of the podcast.
And Schwartz, it's actually a team effort. God's honest truth, Nick. People, when I talk to people about this beer, it's like they you know how some people are like, oh, good luck with that little podcast of yours, right? As soon as you say that you've got a beer, it's like suddenly like I'm relevant. I have credibility. Like I'm the same person before the beer. You know, it's just I don't get it.
Are you though? I see a tinge of confidence in you now. Like maybe like you're holding your chest out a little bit more, like when you walk down the street.
No, because Mrs. Wu keeps me in line, and then suddenly I'm in the doghouse again. So
yeah.
No, she puts an end to that, within 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And then
that's probably true.
Yeah, it's totally true.
But yeah, no, I'm excited to try the beer. The explanation of the beer is fantastic. So I feel like I've already got a little ting. You gotta. I don't even have a picture. You got to come down here and take pictures of me, make me look all pretty.
I've been mentioning it. We just got to put a date. You know what? We'll talk off air. Nick, we got to get it done within a week because you can't go any longer. So we'll have to figure that part out.
And we got Thanksgiving time, so maybe somewhere around there. So I don't go anywhere for Thanksgiving. So there you go.
Can I send my mother-in-law down to your place?
If you want, I will treat her terribly. But we're officially off the rails. Let's get back on the rails. Let's talk about this. James made the point that I kind of made where we were talking about the goalies, and there's just really nobody out there. And Askarov is an interesting name, and I would love that move. Sam, I would. It's the problem with the Askarov move is you'd have to ask Tom Fitzgerald to eat some crow, right? Because if you trade for Askarov while Holtz is still struggling, you basically have to admit that you made the wrong pick. GMs have done it before. But it's not like you could trade Holtz for Askarov. He might be in the deal. But you're going to have to trade Holtz and a first and another premium asset of some kind, right? It's probably Holtz, a first, and something in the, Tobias Villano or one of the same as Seamus Casey. Like you're talking about another premium asset there. So is it worth it for a guy who's unproven, like you said? You're not talking about Hischier Saros, but if Hischier Saros signs an extension there, like, what are you doing, right? You spent the 11th overall pick on Askarov, but Saros is a superstar, no matter how he's been playing this season. Carter Hart's the interesting one. I don't expect Philly to be in it for that much longer. And he's in the timetable, right? He's got the goods. But his issue is he's been playing behind bad defenses for a while. So if he comes to the Devils and the Devils don't fix their defense, then he's just doing the same thing. And can he win with that? Can he win in that situation? Obviously, the Devils have a better offense, and there's an argument to say like the best defense is a good offense. But I just don't. I don't know what the answer is, right? The answer is
I know that
Vanacek and Schmidt has to get better.
I've got the answer. I was talking about this on Devils After Dark. I went rogue on this one. I forget about goaltending. Don't do anything till you fix this defense. Yeah, and it's more than the player personnel. I'm talking about going back to like basics to the point where hey guys, you're not allowed to have any fun in the offensive zone on the blue line.
Oh, we're back to the no fun zone.
Yeah, no, not so much the no fun zone. I think a lot of times the Devils make mistakes, especially their D guys, is when they get caught pinching in and they're not getting back in time, or there's no coverage, or there's no support. And you know what? It's unsustainable right now because now Jack Hughes and Nico Hischier have been out for a significant time in the last couple weeks. That they're exposed. They can't outscore you right now. and the defense is terrible. It's absolutely terrible. They make decent plays here and there. You're like, okay, good. But the inconsistency is just, and the shorthanded chances is still a habitual problem. That's going since the John Hines era, okay?
Yeah.
So, the player personnel, the trades, they're obviously I love to upgrade, but I think you're going to be giving up assets, like you said, because you got to trade somebody, and the cap space is also an issue. But if you don't fix that defense first, you're not going to be solving anything. Let's fix the defense first. Lindy Ruff's system needs to be tweaked a little bit. James Nichols, he alluded to, the first half of the game, there was not much going on. I love that because they were playing defense. They were a little conservative, but you know what? They didn't have to score as much goals towards the end there. As soon as they tied it up, you think 2-2, and then that momentum shift. A minute later, you got to play defense. You got to get back and know when to take risks and get back. If Luke Hughes is going to be pinching in, there better be somebody back there to cover him on the transition on the way back, and that's where they're getting burnt a lot. And it's just a momentum breaker. Jack Hughes masked all that because he had an outrageous first 8-9 games leading the league in points, and then the defense remained the same, but the offense didn't. It's a lot easier to win games when you play great defense than having a high octane offense doing all of it, because it could be stopped at any moment. Injuries, chemistry issues.
Just on that, can I tell you the most surprising stat that I've seen in a long time?
What's that?
Alex Holtz has more even strength points than Jack Hughes.
Well, doesn't surprise me since I compared Alexander Holtz to Ovechkin in that hot take streak. Which does Holtz still have more goals than Ovechkin at this point? I think he does.
I don't know. I don't know what Ovechkin's doing.
I think he has 2 goals.
Washington winning with that is surprising, but I kind of told you that they're kind of doing it with smoke and mirrors, and this happens. You see teams doing it all the time with smoke and mirrors, and there's a lot going on this season. The Edmonton Oilers are obviously like a top of everybody's mind. They fired their coach. Dude, I don't think they have 10 points yet. They don't. They have 9 points after last night's win. Calgary Flames are another team that's just been utter disappointment. We mentioned Nashville. I don't know if you could call them a disappointment because I just didn't think they were going to be good. But Minnesota's a team everybody thought would be good, and Philip Gustafson has been the worst goalie in the league. The Islanders we mentioned. Ottawa is at the bottom of the standings in the Atlantic. Toronto, they're 8-5-2, but people are sounding alarms for whatever reason. And Buffalo, Devin Levi has been really bad. So there's some teams that have it worse than the Devils. The problem is, Sam, is that if the Devils were in the Atlantic, they'd be in, 7th place behind the Montreal Canadiens, who they destroyed, probably their best game of the season. So this Eastern Conference is going to be a bloodbath. You can't lose too many points. What I think you might want is to put together something like maybe not as drastic as the Florida Panthers did last season, where you needed the Penguins to lose to the Blackhawks to get in, but somewhere where you really work out the kinks in 2023, and then, in January, February, March, and April of 2024, that's when you're rolling, right? You figured out the kinks. You had a lot of turnover, just like the Panthers did last year. Now you got those pieces in place, and now you're really rolling. And the Panthers came out this season; they're second to the Bruins this season. They're 10-4-1. So whatever issues ailed them last year, they're fine. They're doing
Nick,
well.
Sorry to interrupt, but Cbonez in the YouTube live says this is a system issue. This is a solid lineup. We have weak spots, but the coaching is that important. Attention to detail. I'm gonna propose something here. I talk about getting a little bit more conservative, right? 5-on-5. Let's work on the defense. Let's get back to basics. Going with what you're saying about working out the kinks, flushing out all the bugs. Because if this team can play defense and get timely goaltending, with that power play that is still on fire, you're going to win a lot of games. You don't need to win 5-on-5. You don't need to outscore your opponents 5-on-5 and be a liability on defense. You just got to be even. And if you can get those power plays and you're operating around, let's be a more realistic 25, 30%, you're going to win a lot of games. I don't care about the style points at this point. I want to be in the playoffs. I want to go far. I want to win a cup, just like everyone else. The Devils are not that far off. It looks doom and gloom, but their power play is like, okay, you can have all that fun on the power play. But 5-on-5, John Marino, Luke Hughes, Dougie, stop pinching in. It's not doing us any good.
It's not even that. You got to stop pinching, but the other guy's always in the wrong position. And I was going to mention this earlier, but we moved on. The main issue here is the positioning. The defensemen are in the wrong position a lot. And when the defensemen are in the right position, and you need help from the defensive forward is not in the right position. And we saw it multiple times last night. We saw it multiple times on Saturday. Right? Or did we play Friday? Whatever it was, the previous game. We said during this 3-game losing streak, you've seen it all the time. Nearly every goal. Blame Vanacek, blame Schmid, whatever. There's always someone out of position. On both Kyle Connor goals, somebody completely out of position.
Behind the goal
really
line?
Put the Devils in a bad spot. What?
Behind the goal line, behind the net. Leaving 3 guys out front.
Yeah, what are you doing? But even Lindy Ruff's system calls for that sometimes, for 2 guys to fight for the puck. A forward's got to come and clean up the front of the net. So, that's kind of where I'm at. Am I worried? I'm worried about the defense, but I see signs that say just give it some time. These are 5 good players, and then you got to figure out what you're doing with that 6. And even James Nichols, who's been a proponent to defend Brendan Smith, to still have there's issues there. There's mistake after mistake. Like, you can't make mistakes when you're Brendan Smith because you don't have the talent to make up for it. Like, what he's supposed to bring is experience and intelligence to this position. But Luke Hughes has skill at the wazoo. Kevin Ball brings a special something to the position. John Marino's good. Siegenthaler's good, and Hamilton's good. These guys didn't they might have seemingly forgot how to play hockey this year, but it's just a slump. It is what it is. I want to see what Colin Miller looks like. I think that's going to come tomorrow. I want to see what how the pairings shake out. I'm glad they finally did something and changed it. Didn't work, but let's keep working until you find the pairings weren't working before. So at least you were trying something new. Let's see if Jack Hughes comes back and a good offense is the best defense he can ask for. And hearing that Nico Hischier is going to be out till December is devastating. That's devastating because he's probably their best defensive forward. Maybe outside of McLeod, but they're right there, 1-2. And McLeod, here's the thing, Sam, is you're asking him to be offensive center again. Does that now hurt your defense, right? Did you take something? Oh, it's like, oh, McLeod's playing well. Put him up in the lineup. He's doing well with that first line. But now your bottom six is worse defensively, just in general. So I would put McLeod back down to the bottom six. People are gonna fight me about it, but his role makes more sense there. Being the speedster, you're muted. If you said something, I didn't hear you.
Sorry. He's more valuable to the team on the fourth line or the third line, the bottom six, than being on the first
Holtz,
line.
Bastian, and McLeod was possibly the best line this team has had this season at even strength. You know, the Hughes, Toffoli, and whoever Meyer, I guess we'll say Meyer. Hughes, Toffoli, and Meyer is hard to beat, but
No, it's
McLeod, Bastian, and Holtz have fantastic numbers. Short sample size. I think it's like 32 minutes, but fantastic numbers.
You know where I'm worried about? I'm worried about Nico Hischier. If there's anything to be worried about, Nico Hischier.
Yeah.
The guy takes a beating. Unnecessarily, a lot of times.
I mean, people talk about Hughes' injury history. He sure has an injury history.
Yeah.
You know, so, you know, last year, we forget, he missed the first game last year. And everybody was losing their minds. But he was back game 2, didn't miss another one.
Yep.
But you know what's really sad, Sam? I mean, this isn't what really sad, but Devils are basically out on all the awards. Jack Hughes is not getting the MVP after missing, you know, maybe he can, but he needs to lead the league in points despite the games missed. But it's likely that he lost out, right? The MVPs don't usually miss games at all, let alone, you know, 7 or 8 or 9 or whatever it's going to end up being. He's just completely out for the Selke. You know, this was the year he could have established himself with Patrice Bergeron out, but you know, you're going to see somebody else get that award. Dougie Hamilton's not in the Norris Trophy talk because, you know, defense has been bad. Luke Hughes is probably not going to get the Calder because, you know, he struggled a little bit, and they're probably just going to give it to Bedard, right? It's not like Hughes is going to be like Sidney Crosby didn't win the Calder because they gave it to Ovechkin, right? It's not like Hughes is this lock Hall of Famer like they saw with, you know, Ovechkin and Crosby. They're going to give it to the guy they want to present at the awards and all that. So Devils might be completely out of it. It's up to Lindy Ruff to turn this ship around and win the Jack Adams. But we'll see.
Yeah.
And I know that's not what the fans want to hear because I saw Fire Lindy creep its ugly head again. We need to chill with that. Like let's calm down on that.
No, Lindy is just fine. I just wish Lindy would make
You gotta calm down.
Couple tweaks. That's all we need is a couple tweaks. They're not that far off. I mean, that power play is still buzzing.
Yeah.
Without you know their two pillars. You know.
And how do you translate that? How do you take what's going on there? I saw somebody say what this team really misses is Andrew Burnett. Andrew Burnett, the head coach of the last place Nashville Predators, who took all the pieces of this power play that's now by far the tops of the league and was like a middle of the pack. That's what we need. People just like to see themselves tweet.
I think people like to complain. They like to throw crap on the wall just because they can. I mean, I've been reading a lot of stuff about the food at Prudential Center, lack of concession stands open, all that. People are just talking about anything negative. But as soon as they start winning, trust me, winning solves everything. But with that power play, let's look on the positive side. That power play is so potent. All right. Travis Green did a heck of a job so far in the first quarter. Is even the quarter mark yet? But in the first 10 games, 12 games of the season, that's the one thing that hasn't stopped was their power play. But the league noticed when they were operating at 47% or whatever, and they stopped giving them power plays, whatever reason. So again, if they could just shore up that defense and maybe just, I'm not saying not be aggressive, but when you've got a 2-2 tie, you just tied it up, you kind of have to get back into that chess match again. But instead, they gave up a goal. They gave up a goal.
I agree.
And I agree with Felix as well. And I mentioned this before we go. You got to get Scott Stevens back in the organization in some capacity.
Something tells me he doesning want to.
Something tells me something happened, but I'm not going to speculate.
I mean, something did happen. He was behind the bench, and they picked somebody else, and he went to Minnesota. So something did happen. I don't know. Maybe he's still bitter about that, right?
He could be. Maybe he got an introduction to the Harris Blitzer Sports Entertainment, how things work.
Yeah, because is that when they hired McLean?
No, I think it was when they had three generals behind the bench. It was Lou.
Well, yeah, but he was one of the three generals. But then they hired. Did they hire Hines?
Yeah.
So, you could have hired a franchise legend and said you hire, a guy from Pittsburgh's development
that was
system.
a weird time, okay? Marty Bolts, okay? Mm-hmm. Scott Stevens gets shafted, right? That was a weird time. I think it was just, I think the smartest thing that upper management ever did was they let Marty go to college in St. Louis, and then they brought him back. That was the smartest thing they ever did, from top to bottom, from hockey operations to the business side to marketing those jerseys and just, use Marty as the scapegoat of the designer, all that. But that was the smartest thing because Marty Brodeur, out of all the players, that's the one you want on your side, and the Devils did that right.
Yeah.
Or they at least figured it out. Because it was just weird that he went to St. Louis.
As a player?
As a player, that whole thing that went down, and, I don't... Lou wanted to do something, and, if you remember at that time, I believe it was Marty's brother that tweeted something out and then deleted it, saying that after all these years of, being loyal, this is what we get. And then 10 minutes later it was deleted.
It's always funny when they say we, right?
Yeah.
It's but anyway. That's all I got, Sam. I'm ready for plugs. 8:30. Or it's 9:30. Sorry, your clock is wrong.
All right. Why don't you plug first?
pucksandpitchforks.com. We had a new one go out last night. 3 lessons to learn from the Edmonton Oilers. There's a lot of lessons the Devils can learn. They were on similar trajectories, and obviously the Oilers are in the tank. So what do you want to avoid if you're the Devils? There was a lot of lessons, but I went over the 3 biggest ones. David Holliday talked about last night's fiasco. I talked about 3 trade targets that would be interesting from the Calgary Flames. Jersey Joe talked about Nikita Zadorov and a trade. Charlie Borges Jr. did a really nice story about a pattern of Swedish prospects and how none of them really worked out when they were in the first round. Obviously, Jesper Brett worked, but he was a 6th-round pick. Why are these high-level talents and highly touted prospects not working? I talked about Simon Nemitz's big game over the weekend, how it's pushing for him to get promoted. Luke Garrison talking about how it's not really as bad as everybody's making it out to be. And then Jersey Joe talked about Ryan McGill and how he needs to really tighten this defense up. But yeah, that's pucksandpitchforks.com. And remember, if you want to yell about the Devils, come apply. We'll bring you in. We'll give you a platform, and remember to ask me questions, because we've had a couple of applicants and we bring them on and they never write. I don't know what happens, but it is what it is.
Yeah. Also, I want to plug as well that Devils Rangers Saturday at American Whiskey, 51 Edison Place, across the street from Prudential Center. The And Crew Brew Big Stage at American Whiskey will be out, weather permitting. We got a lot of And Crew Brew on hand. And Shorts Guy, myself, Beer Baron, will be in attendance doing the podcast, both Game Day Live and Devils After Dark. It's a doubleheader Saturday, by the way. We're getting there early because Seton Hall basketball is playing at noon Eastern on Saturday, but as we're setting up. So it's going to be a good time. It's going to be a good time. Get there early. Art Heen says the Rangers suck confetti. Yes, I'll have to bring that as well. But yeah, come in early. Come see us. And that's all I have to say. I'm going to hit the music, Nick.
Let's go. Music is for the people.
Yeah, I'm trying to hit the button. All
So
right.
is the beer. The beer is for the people.
Yes. We'll have to talk off air, Nick, of our little get-together. We got to take some pictures. We got to, talk. Anyway. All righty. And are we going next week is a game night, and it's day before Thanksgiving. We'll have to figure that one out, Nick.
We traditionally go the day before Thanksgiving, but, we'll talk.
We'll talk. Dropping the podcast at midnight. Till next time, let's go Devils.